Art Sparks. I'm Taryn, watercolor artist living in Silicon Valley.
And I'm Sieglinde, also an abstract artist living in Silicon Valley. Welcome to Art Sparks with Taryn and Sieglinde.
Yes, guys. And don't you know, that been noticing? Yes, we've been liking having people over and we have great people. So we have a new special person today. So Sieglinde, please introduce.
Oh, today we have a special guest. This is going to be so good. We have Mark Waxman here. And Mark has had or is still having a rock star career in marketing. He's currently Chief Marketing Officer at Sieglinde. He advises exciting startups with great missions. And these companies should just be so lucky to have him on his board because he's a wealth of wisdom and positive inspiration, as you will soon hear. He's also a board member at the Institute for Contemporary Art, which also stands for ICA. And he's a board member and former chair of Silicon Valley Creates, which is focused on elevating the cultural and aesthetic quality of life in Silicon Valley through the transformative power of art and creativity. Don't we love that? But
I didn't have that memorized. Thanks for doing that.
You're welcome. But today we are talking to Mark about his adventurous experience as an art collector. So welcome, Mark.
Thank you. And thank you for such a great introduction. I'll attempt to live up to it. I prefer managing the expectations low, but we'll do.
Oh. Well, we have awesome guests, so we're also managing our expectations to highlight the awesomeness of our guests.
Okay. Isn't it? Yeah, I know. Because we usually have we have galleries and then we have people on the other side of it selling the art. But it's so right now. It's so nice to see a new point of view of the other side. Okay. What is it when a person is getting a piece of work? So my question would be for you is, when was the first time you got your piece, the first piece? When do you find it and what? Yeah.
Well, it's a funny thing. I'm gonna. I can tell you the story about the very first piece of art that I collected, but I'm not sure it's as relevant because it was purely because in my previous life, I had an ad agency and I worked with a commercial photographer for years, and then he got into fine art. And that's actually, I should say that he did all along, as many artists do, he did commercial work to support his fine art. And as that got to the point that fine art took off for him, backed off the commercial. And when he first started, he got really involved. He published a book, and the very first book that he published, the cover photo I just adored, loved, and so he offered it to me, and so that was my first piece. But it really didn't come in the typical way that you would find art. So I think the more relevant ones are really like the second, third, fourth, fifth, 10th, 20th one that I got, because they're more the ones I think that happens to more, maybe more of your listeners, or more commonly, or go ahead, Sieglinde.
Yeah, so in other words, your appetite was whetted in a very spontaneous way, but then there was a second and a third. So you got into it. So what inspired you to continue buying art?
Yeah, so it's true, but there's a gap in the time there, and I got more involved in other things. I've always been involved with visual arts, even with the ad agency was graphic design. I always liked it. I was on the board at that time of Montalvo. Loved. My favorite part there was the sculpture on the grounds. But you don't think, as you're walking around those giant sculptures, hey, I'd like when I have one of those. That's just not how your mind works. But I got involved with Institute of Contemporary Art, and that's really where I started spending really more time just enjoying, appreciating, looking at art. And that's where 2, 3, 4, and then many other places since then. But that's kind of where they started it. And I think that what I found there was, just by immersing myself in that experience and seeing something I liked, and we can talk a lot more about what all the other decision points are, and I think that's probably what's of interest, but ultimately it was nothing more or less visceral than walking around looking, going, wow, I really like that. And that's where it started, honestly.
So can we conclude that this is your favorite part of the process, this awe, walking around and seeing it? And
absolutely. So yeah. So the thing is, I think, well, first of all, I will say this. I don't know. You used the phrase earlier, and I'm not about art collecting, and I think that's an interesting thought, because I'm I'm not sure for sure that I am technically an art collector. I have lots of art. But I always think of a collector as somebody who has, a plan and maybe they're investing, or maybe they want a certain genre, or that's a collector. I'm just
Interesting.
buy art that I like, and I ended up with a lot of it. Does that make me a collector? I'm not.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So
I guess there's different levels of collector depending on your definition, but I think anybody who engages in buying art, not just as a one-off, but actually for the love of the arts, is a collector. And then there are higher level collectors who would have more like a plan and a theme for their collection and an investment, but it doesn't have to be.
Well, they have different interests in when they acquire paintings or acquiring pieces. So it depends on the intention of what you acquire. Yes.
Well, and I think maybe that's actually the difference between at least what I'm thinking of and a collect is that it is just that interest as opposed to a theme or a collect or anything else. It's that very, very sort of emotional moment of seeing something going, I really like that. Then though, and people always ask this, and I do have a lot of art by people whom I know. And I didn't really realize that it wasn't by intent so much. But here's what's interesting. It's like, and I literally went through and looked, and I realized it's some mix of people who I met as artists and then saw their work and went, wow, and other people or other art that I saw and bought and then got to know the artist and appreciated more and maybe would buy other. So it actually worked. There was no magic, that it only went one direction. But the thing that matters, I guess, was that the art had that emotional response. I could love somebody. I could think they're the most fabulous, wonderful, talented, funny, perfect, love to go out to drinks person with them. But I wouldn't necessarily buy their art unless I took a look at it and went, wow, I love that piece of art. That's
right.
Got to be the bottom line.
Okay, so you admire, but what makes you do it admiring to acquiring it?
Yes, yeah, there's all that decision point, right? I'm in marketing. So I always talk about the difference between, when you kind of go from a want to a need. A need could be a psychological need. A want is, because you can look at a lot of stuff, I want that, I want this, I want that, or that. But at that moment that you go, I'm actually gonna get my wallet out. There's something that's clicked, right? And there's what you've gone through some decision points. And that's when all the other stuff, and I think sometimes artists might think those decision points are the most critical, and I think they're actually a part of an internal negotiation. Here's what I mean. So, point one, there's that step one that we're talking about, that aha. You look at something and you go, oh, wow, I like that.
Emotional.
And then other things happen, right? So, and one of them, not the only one, but one for sure, is you look at the price. Let's face it, you do, right? Unless you have unlimited funds, most of us don't. And then there's this kind of a bell spectrum. There's this few that you look at one end of the spectrum and you go, ew, well, I really like that, but that's way so out of my league, right? And then once in a while it goes the other way. It doesn't happen often, but once in a while it goes the other way. You go, wow, that's what a great piece. It's only that. I'm gonna get that, and that's it. It's over. But most of the time, you gotta process, and that's where you go. You want to learn more. That's where I think we want to find out. We buyers, what's the story? Why do you do that? What are you conveying? Sometimes it's the physical process. I'm interested in what was the process, the skill, the technology behind all of those things are all part of learning about it and making that decision that says, okay, yeah, I want it. But I'm gonna go back to that thing. If I don't care now how great the process was and how great the technology and how great the skill and what a great story it is and what a great message it conveys. I don't care any of that. If when I don't look at it the first time, I don't go, wow, here, heart first.
Yes.
First, head second.
Oh my God, Mark, this is amazing because you just repeated from your point of view everything that we've been sharing on this podcast about buy art with your heart, look for that emotional response, engage with the piece, you know, talk to the artist. Artists actually want to talk to their art buyers / collectors, whatever the definition is at this point. They want to talk to them too. They want to get to know the people who are interested in their pieces and or who love them and want to buy them. Like and you know, we're all people, you know, like art is not just some commodity like a jug of milk, right? That connection is important for the artist, but it is so wonderful to hear that for you. I mean, first off, you know, there is always that reaction towards the piece, obviously, because when you buy it, you're going to live with it on a daily basis. So you want to buy something that you love, right? It makes you happy. And then there is that next level, especially if the price is somewhere in the middle, right? It's not like way out of your league, but it's also not like, oh yeah, that's like an instant buy. So I love that there's this flow in the middle where it becomes personal, it becomes engaging. And so I have to ask you, because the other day we were talking and you said to me, Sieglinde, when I see a work of art that I like, within budget, let's say, right? I buy it and I figure out later where it will fit into my home. And I love that, right? I would like applaud it. I'm like, yeah.
But you should hear, the other way around, okay?
Yeah, exactly. So, you know,
is it usually the other way around? That's
absolutely.
an interesting thing.
Absolutely, absolutely. So it was so fun to hear that, because that means that you really bought with your heart, right? I mean, that's proof of that. So I love that approach. But since we usually hear the opposite, like, well, I'm not sure, it needs to fit in my house, or I'm waiting for my rugs. I heard that 2 days ago. I'm waiting for my rugs to arrive. Then I can look at your art. I know. So what would you say to people
that
who
always,
have the opposite?
that art can't match your sofa thing, right? That one bothers me.
Well, what would you say to people who, I mean, the art needs to fit somehow, right? But what would you, it's not like there is like a baseline where it's like, yeah. But what would you say to people who are the opposite of your reasoning, to sort of make them feel more at ease that it doesn't have to be this perfect match? Or what would you say to them as advice or suggestions or?
Well, a couple of things. First of all, of course, you're right. There are parameters, right? And there are times, that I think you remember I talked those like decision points in the middle of the, once the heart is already there. One of them is place. I mean, that's a point. You know, if the piece is, 8 feet by 8 feet, and I know that there's nowhere in my world that I've got that's a piece of it. Or, then I start thinking, and I do think if I'm in that, but I've already loved it. Remember, I already love it. So I might be thinking, God, that could really go well there. But I'm more, I'd say 9 out of 10 times, just exactly what you said. I will find what speaks to me and figure if it speaks to me, I'll find a place to have it speak to me. Now, the downside of that is that, either I got to keep, building extra walls. I'm going to be like the Winchester Mystery House, right? And build extra walls and just.
I love it.
Which I'm not probably going to do. I'm going to have some art that's not necessarily always on the walls. And I found that that's what happens. And once in a while, I will go through and I'll kind of say, okay, I'm going to, put that up for a while. And just because there's just, there's just not at some points enough. But I guess what I'd say to them is, if you really like it enough, if it makes your heart sing in some way, usually for me, most of my art is joyful, but not all. Sometimes it's also moving in other ways. But if it gives you that, emotional response, you should find a place for it, and you will find a place for it. Sometimes it takes a while. The very last piece I bought was a situation like that. It's leaning over on the wall over there because I don't have a spot for it yet. I'm going to find one because I like it. And I haven't found it yet, but I'm gonna find it.
You're now having an energetic conversation with the piece as it leans to your wall until it tells you where it wants to be.
Yeah. I mean, I walk around and I look, and and I also think, well, I could put it, it's very realistic, right? I look and I go, I could put it there, but then I'd have to take that down. I go, I love that too. So, but I'll figure it out.
I actually like that you sort of like that you're not afraid to take a piece down and put it away for a while and then bring it back and look at it with fresh eyes. And it also keeps your house interesting and dynamic, I would say, right?
There are a couple of things. One is I love that when I turn a corner or something, I see something and because I always like it. But if you turn that corner and seen the same thing every day for a long enough time, well, you may love the piece, it doesn't have that same impact. Mm-hmm. This is one of the most amazing things. I've done this a couple times. I have a hallway kind of at two ends of my house. And so there's places where I turn, you turn and you walk right at something. And those are really wonderful places because you see them every day, right? And so if after some period of time I will switch something, it'll be like it makes me happy again every day for however many, because I'll walk out and I'll go, oh yeah, because it's not what I have been seeing there. It's like, I don't know, it's like going on vacation. You got a whole new view.
But that happens to us because I change my paintings and sometimes like, it goes. I get bored and then move to a new one and they start to feel like excited about it. So I totally understand it. Yes, but I have a question.
Fresh.
It is like, okay, and you forget and then you discover something new. Mm-hmm. So, but a question. So you have all these pieces. Do they have something in common, or how did you choose one from another? Like, yes, all the pieces that you have. Do they speak to each other or they're just different?
Oh, how do I arrange them, you mean?
Well, no, when you okay, the other piece that you have.
Yes.
Do they have something in common?
Do they have anything in common? Yeah.
Other than the person who bought and chose them because they spoke to his heart.
Right. And that's not all. There are definitely people. I mean, one of my favorite pieces I bought just because I just absolutely loved it. And then I actually several, and I was saying this, and then I, if on Facebook or something, found them and liked them. And I, after I hung the picture, I'd send a picture and go, hey, here, I bought this, loved it, and here it is. And to your point, they love that. So then in some cases I become friends with them after it's complete. I've never met some of them physically, but I became friends with them over the art. So it's worked both ways. But in terms of commonality, it's a really interesting thing. I do like, I know contemporary art, so as opposed to traditional, so that's for sure. And I think that as I said earlier, I think probably if there's anything in common, that most of them bring me joy. And so most of them, not all, there's a significant amount of color. I don't have any, I tend to have my house very minimalistic. So there's lots of, not a lot of color in terms of, so the art is what sings. And so the art has to have a lot of color. And I probably do a terrible job, I don't know, but it's easy when you hang one piece. What's not easy is a wall and you want to put multiple pieces, and they are not meant or designed to go together, and there's no book that says this goes with that or whatever, and you just kind of got to look at them and go, I think I like that. So there's absolutely no magic to it, but it's fun. I wish I had somebody to help me do that, but that's a hard part, is figuring out how to arrange multiple pieces. It's a very challenging thing to do.
I'm happy to help with that. I love doing that because it is actually another layer of the creative process, to combine things that seem completely out of reach to each other and put them in a dialogue that works and that creates a good vibe and an interesting dynamic. But so I also back to Taryn's question, actually. So are you a colorful person? The reason I'm asking is because just like we sort of put ourselves in our artwork, and buying art and hanging art in your home, I just said that's also being creative. I was asking, like, does it somehow reflect your personality, the pieces that you have, or is this a question like?
That's a good. I hadn't really thought about it. I like to think I'm a colorful person in the non-literal sense of colorful, but in the literal sense, yeah, I do. Wait, hold on. This has never happened before on your podcast, right? Okay, there's my son. That was not planned. That's just, yeah.
Oh my God, but that is like the minimal interior, and then the color flashes on the wall. Yeah, it's like the very business-like shirt, and then the very rebellious socks.
Well, guys, that's the only way that's one of the very few things guys can do to do that, is get away with stuff. So yeah, so I guess there is at least some part of me that would like to be that. Yeah.
Cool. And so Okay, so now you have all this artwork in your home, right? And COVID is ending, so hopefully family and friends come back to your house, right? So when they come to your home and they see all this art, they walk the hallways, they see these pieces that you highlighted. Is there, towards other people, is there something you want them to take away from it? Is there some kind of message that you want to convey when the artwork is in your home, or if not, like, have they asked you questions where you end up into this conversation that somehow leaves them inspired when they walk away?
So that's a good question. I've never really thought of that. Of course, whenever you want your home to reflect you and all of those things. So I guess that goes back to colorful, artistic. So I guess in that very broad sense, then I'd say yes, but in terms of the art I've picked or whatever, no, I honestly picked that for me to see. And if they like it, they like it. And if they don't, they don't, because it's just me, so I do absolutely, people ask questions, but it's a range. As you, I'm sure, have experienced, you get people from the oh gee, that looks like I could have done that with a paintbrush, or at the one end of the spectrum to what is that supposed to be, or whatever. But then you get other people that that obviously care and ask questions, and that's where I really enjoy, going back to what we were talking about earlier. I like storytelling. I'm not.
Oh, please, we love stories.
Get this. I'm not uncomfortable talking. That may be a new thing to you, but I consider myself, I like telling stories. So that's where it's really fun to be able to know what was going through the artist's mind, or and again, sometimes, like I have this one piece that's, the person who made it is a 7th generation direct descendant of a samurai sword maker, and the technique that they learned from the of how to work on steel to do the piece. That's story. And so when somebody looks at that and says, "Well, then I have this great story to tell about. It was about this was made by somebody who was a descendant of a samurai." I love that stuff, and so I do enjoy. That's where I like knowing about the art and how it was made, or what it represents, or what the message is, or that sort of thing. Yeah,
absolutely. And I love this storytelling concept, because we always say art always has a story to tell. And exactly, when you do know more about the piece or the artist, you have like an awesome conversation starter whenever you have people over in your home, right? But the main reason I asked you this question is actually because I one time had a collector tell me, Sieglinde, you have to understand, the art I have in my home is not just a reflection of me, it's also a reflection on me. And so for him, it was very important that the people who would frequent his home, from family to friends to peers and colleagues, would actually approve of the art that he bought, which is his prerogative. So, but because you spoke about passion and buying art with your heart, I wanted to hear a little bit more, because I'm sure that there are people who say, yeah, but what if, what will the Joneses say? And I love that you said, hey, I bought that for me. It's my freedom. It's my choice. I don't really care if you like it or not. If we have an interesting conversation about it, it's awesome.
I really honestly don't. I mean, I'm that's not an exaggeration. I don't. But I do, get that. I in terms of reflection on me from a collective sense of here's somebody who likes art. I like that. That's part of my image. I think that's who I am, because I've always been a creative person. So I like that expression. But in terms of the specifics of the piece, I mean, I believe that art's such an incredibly personal choice. I would be, if I had a piece of art that everybody walked in the door loved, I'd go, that's weird almost, because people are so different. It's so, it seems like if I have 10 people walk through the house and pick their 3 pieces, I would assume that every one of them would pick something different. And that's okay with me. It's okay if somebody goes, oh, I don't like that. Well, okay. That's not why it's not in your house.
Well, but I always love if I'm kind of a similar way. I don't know about you, Taryn, please jump in. So, if everybody likes the same thing, like, oh, maybe I should like something else. So that's just me. But I do love when somebody tells me, I don't like that, when we can have a conversation about it. Like, even with my own work, right? Like, okay, you don't have to love my work. That's fine, because it is a personal taste. But then there's a difference between loving it and dismissing it. Those are two extremes. And then there's can we have a conversation about it? Not to convince anybody, but just an exchange of thoughts and ideas. I kind of like that, especially if we're on opposite side of the spectrum. Because then I learn something new.
But it's actually refreshing that you're saying, hearing from another point of view, because people that comes and see our art, yes, they act like you said, like, oh, this one is this, oh, this one is that, and you realize what it's like, or you get an idea if they go for it or not. But what happened for me, instead of hearing, is that the viewer brings their own story. They sometimes they see something fantastic, and I'm like, don't say anything, because they have their own story, they have their own meaning. So I don't know if you have also choose pieces because they speak to you, or it reminds you of something, or someone that would say like, oh, definitely this is something that is, I don't know, that makes me move someplace. I don't know. That's
I find it, I don't know what the word is, natural that people have that difference, and it is. I think it's a story, but I don't think it's. I think art should be personal. I think it should be a matter of taste. I don't think it should be that everybody likes. It's like, I don't know, food, right? If I love Italian food and you tell me I really hate Italian food, I'm not going to convince you that no, Italian food is really great because if you don't like it. It's just, you just don't like it. That's okay. It's totally good. We won't, you don't have to have it. I'm ordering Italian food because I do like it, or what. And I've always, one of the things I actually joked the other day about this. Maybe somebody has done this, but I believe that people's choice in art is, like you were saying, it means something to them. That might be, it doesn't matter to anybody else. And I've always wanted to see, they have all those like books and slideshows and things like that of people and their pets, because how the pet relates to the human. I've always wanted to think we could do that with art. I would like to see people that I know and their favorite art, because I think that would be interesting to see what people like, because I think it's that personal. I think it's that connected to you as an individual. And it's almost, I'm going to say this is a bad thing. I'll probably get thrown off the ICA board for saying this. But, sometimes the incredibly academic discussions of the quality of the art and how that's evocative of this or that, and I know that, I get it. I understand that, the intellectual side of that and what makes it good or what makes it not good. But I also still think that somebody's going to walk in and go, I like it. And the next guy's going to walk in and say, I don't like it. And they were both completely right. They're 100% right in their opinion.
I actually agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Yeah.
And also, Taryn, what you said about viewers bringing their own story, that's what I mean with the conversation. Because then that's how I learn what they see in my work. And then, it inspires for another piece.
It's especially true if they do like it, though. That's where.
No, actually, I learn more when they don't like it. It's like, okay, that's maybe not what we want to hear, right? But then those are the most interesting conversations, because the people who dare tell you, I really don't like that, you say, oh, okay, so tell me more, right? So, and it's not about me convincing them, it's me really listening, like, why do they have this averse reaction to this piece? And then it's so enlightening what comes up. Sometimes they bring stuff to my piece that I'm just like, wow, never in a million years, but okay, I see that from your point of view. So yeah, I actually learned the most, and this is not, viewers, this is not an invitation to now bombard me with things you don't like about my artwork. I do have a sensitive heart.
Hey, everybody, if you're listening on me.
But those conversations, I love talking with people who love the artwork and what they bring to it. I always learn something new, but but the most deep conversations are oftentimes when somebody can express why they don't like it or why they have an adverse reaction. Like sometimes it really is just like, I don't like bright colors. I want monochromatic. And then you have monochromatic pieces. So it's like, I want bright colors. Like sometimes it's as simple as that, but sometimes there's way more behind it. And
well, I want to get to a point, but you said about the dogs, the pets, and you look like the pets, all right? And I like the analogy. Though sometimes there are people, they are afraid to get paid big pets because they don't know how to take care of it. And here is art. There's a lot of people that are afraid of, maybe they feel that they can afford it, or may feel like they don't know how to buy it or how to find it. What would you suggest or recommend for them to get that, learn how to acquire art and be happy with that?
So that's a really good question, and I think a really hard one. So one of the things that I've done is, like with I have three children, two are grown and one close, and so periodically I've done things like gifted them small things of art, inexpensive things. This is be terrible. I love my older son. I love this. He's just out of school and just in his first place and all that sort of stuff. And he said, and I know he'll laugh about this someday. He said, "Dad, that's the first thing I've hung on my wall that's not from Amazon." Okay. But he did hang it on his wall, so yay. And I mean, part of it is sometimes having somebody to just kind of break that barrier and all that. A lot of it is also, I do think, honestly, there is a price point issue. And so sometimes what I suggest to people is, kind of start small, where you don't feel like you're putting so much of your, and whatever that is for you. I mean, it's all relative, right? But whatever that is for you, that you don't feel like it's so much that you are, feeling worried, oh, did I, make a bad decision? Did I waste money or whatever? Mm-hmm. And just, and there's lots and lots. And Alameda is a perfect example of places where there is lots of art of lots of different kinds. Works is another one. There's a bunch locally that you can find art that is really relatively, it's a range, but some of it's not expensive, some certainly. And kind of, I just feel like you try it on for size in a way, and just to dip your toe in the water. I said something earlier, and I'd never said it before. It made me, I'm going to write it down because I liked it. And that was that idea when, I said I come around the corner and I see a different view, and it's like being on vacation, because that's one of the things I love a view, and I love going different places because I can look at something different. Well, this is it's like that in your house. And so, if you have that chance to, it's like going on vacation from the mundane, right? Suddenly something interesting, and it's neutral thing or a lamp it's something interesting. So I really advocate for find something that you like that's relatively inexpensive, and just take that, go ahead, make the risk acceptable, and take it and put it up and live with it. And then I think for most of it, if people will go, that was cool, I think I'll do another, that's what I think.
That's awesome. And even though I could chat with you about this subject for hours, I think we're on time and we have to wrap it up.
Okay.
But Mark, thank you so much for sharing your experiences and your take on buying art with us and with the viewers. This was so fun and so enlightening. And
happy to do it.
Yeah, and everybody else, thank you for watching. Join us again next time, and please remember to subscribe. That will really help us in the algorithms, and share with anybody else who could benefit and enjoy this conversation. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you for watching. Bye.